All right, we're live on Facebook. So, all right, so well, welcome, boys and girls. We had there was three of us scheduled. Jason Eldridge isn't able to make it, so we will miss him for sure. He usually brings us good insight on what's happening in the building world, and what I could say is they're building as fast as they can. As many as they can. Excuse me. Well, some of them, some of them are actually a little rabbit trail, but some of them are staggering it out. So in other words, they're only going to release like 12 units. They all go under contract, and the next 12 units they release will be priced $10,000 higher. So they're just and I don't blame them, because if they released 100, they'd be gone tomorrow. So if they release 10, they'll be gone tomorrow, and then 2 weeks or a month later release another 10. And then they'll be gone at a higher price. So, I mean, it's obviously a good time to be a builder. It's going to be a long time before they build before they overbuild, right? Because that's what happened in 2003, 4, 5, and 6. As they overbuilt, and then it all come tumbling down. Well, I don't see that happening anytime soon. And I'll get into some basic numbers with that. Let me share my screen real quick. Let me get my PowerPoint up and running. Then we'll talk about inventory. All right, let's get back to Zoom. All right, share screen. All right, where is it? There we go. All right, so boys and girls, so the 800-pound gorilla in everybody's conversation is inventory, right? And it is. Inventory is way down. So, but let's look at some of the numbers on that, right? So inventory is way down. If you look at the numbers, I mean, there's like in the MLS, there's like 2,400 listings. I mean, that's like virtually nothing. The same day last year, and I'll show you a chart on that. Well, before we go to that. So, but here's another number. 2020 was a record-breaking year in the number of homes sold. So, you got to say, okay, that's kind of like not adding up, right? So if inventory is way down, but we had a record-breaking year in units, something's not adding up right. So, so Salt Lake County, we just had over 19,000 units in Salt Lake County, and then over 53,000 statewide. Remember, this is MLS data, so any homes that were not in the MLS, but this is pretty much the lion's share of everything. So we have that data, but something is not adding up, right? We have like a fraction of the inventory, but we're having record number of unit sales. So let's look into why that is. Okay. So listings are way down, but active listings today compared to active to this. So if you do a snapshot of today's active listings, compare that to the same day last year, we're down 65% of the number of listings. That's huge, right? So, but let's look at that. So, however, when you compare active and pending, right, including those in a backup. So remember, backup is an under contract property, a sale pending that is available in the MLS to show and present a backup offer. Where if it's under contract, that means the seller is not showing the house anymore. But backup means you can show it and send a backup offer. So when you add active and pending, you get a whole different number. Then we're down significantly less, and we're only down 24.5%, which is still a big number, but it's nowhere near 65%. So let me show you the chart on that, what that looks like. So last year, this day, we had 6,800, and we thought that was low because in the peak years, or I guess it would be the down years, the peak number of listings were in the 14,000 range. And now we're down to 2,396. So, like I said, it's down 65%. Backup is, close to the same. But here's the bigger number right here. When you have under contract, but you have to add these two together. So under contract, so when you add backup and under contract now, that's actually as many listings as we had before. So we have twice or three times as many pending as we do active. So all that, so what that means is we still have a good fair amount of listings, but they sell in days. I mean, I posted on our Facebook page, things you only hear in this market. It's been on the market 4 days. What's wrong with it? It's like, have you ever thought you'd hear that statement, George?
No.
It's been on 4 days. It's something wrong with it.
Good problem. Yeah. Oh, we got to go on for a price reduction. 4 days.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, I mean, that's just an incredible set of numbers. But keep in mind, so really what that means is we have inventory, but it's just going fast. The difference is you cannot take a buyer out on a Saturday, show them 8 or 9 properties and let them choose. So when you have a buyer today, you have to go out every time something hits the market, and that's a challenge. I mean, that's a pain in the butt, So, but it is what it is. I mean, you have basically 2 options: roll up your sleeves and work based on today's climate, or go get in a coffin and wait. I mean, that's a Mike Ferry line. Go get in a coffin and wait. And it was one of the quotes I heard. Mike quoted it, but it wasn't his quote. I think it was Earl Nightingale, one of those or something like that. But he just said, if you're in a rut, a rut is just a grave with the ends kicked out. I thought that was a good line. So the thing is, boys and girls, we have inventory, but like I said, it goes so fast, and it's a real challenge and it's a real skill. And I posted on the Wasatch Front Agents about, is anybody charging a buyer a retainer fee? And some people say they would never do that, blah, 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 blah. And hey, I'm here to tell you, if I were an active agent on the streets today, I would be charging a retainer fee. And the reason is just because I only want to focus on those that are going to do something, right? Because somebody's giving you a retainer fee, they're super motivated. And here's the thing, because if you figure, look, 2,300 listings, and 15,000 agents, I mean, obviously, it's going to take a well-experienced agent to get you a house in this climate. Yeah, you may, people are getting 18 offers, and it's the experienced agents that are, it's the experienced agent that are getting into the conversation. If somebody's got 18 offers, I mean, 12 of them are just going to be like, okay, we're not even talking to that. Let's narrow it down to this 6. How do we narrow it down to 3? How do we narrow it down to 2? That kind of thing. And so, and agents that have the experience to do that are the ones that are getting the deals under contract. And then the others are not, I mean, they're just frustrated. Their buyers are frustrated. So I would, it's real easy to say that a frustrated buyer would willingly pay a retainer fee to work with an agent that can get them a house. I mean, have you seen anything like that, George? Are you hearing retainers fees from agents?
The first time I've heard the conversation, but I mean, that's what professionals do in the legal profession, and and a few other things, So I mean,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And I posted that question in a national Facebook group, and some agents actually posted the language in their standard state form, the buyer agent contract, that actually had retainer fee language right in it.
Wow.
So, and it was in places like Oklahoma. We're thinking, we think Oklahoma, we think, we're progressive, but I mean, hey, they're doing it. So, I know I would be doing it, and I would be, I would certainly be trying to work a little higher end, and they're more apt to do it anyway. Joe Sixpack's probably not as excited about it, but they lose out on a half a dozen houses, they may reconsider. So here's the thing. So let me get to my notes. Let me see. Where's my notes? I got to get to my notepad. Where's it at? So let's talk about, so I'll just share my screen and I'll go back to when we get to the interest rates, George, I'll go back to your thing you shared with me.
Okay.
So here's my notes. So, and this is why we're going to continue the way the market has been. So let me move that over a little bit. So, what's 2021 going to look like? Well, it's going to continue to look like what we've had been, and it may even get worse. Who knows? So, because of our, so my notes are, and that's from me listening to James Wood, Lawrence Yun, and all these other forecasts that, James Wood said, we have such a diverse economy that we only lost 1% of our employment, and we may have had a lot in the beginning, and they were expecting to lose, a couple 100,000 jobs here in Salt Lake or in Utah, but that didn't happen. So we lost maybe 1 year of job growth. So, so that's create, so we already had a bottleneck, so the 1 year job growth is not going to, it's basically a speed bump in our world, versus, because in the last 10 years, we've had almost 30% of job growth. And that's why we're faring well. In other words, because we've had such a high job growth over the last 10 years that a 1% job loss didn't hurt us that bad, and so we're forecasted to have about a 3.8% gain, which is about 60,000 new jobs, coming up. So we're going to have 60,000 new jobs. So, what does that mean? That means, that means, people coming of age are going to be able to buy a house. People moving in from out of states, where jobs are being cut. Look at Vegas. I mean, Vegas is pretty much a one-horse town, right? I mean, their whole industry is hospitality and entertainment. So that's like, that's got to hurt, where we're so diverse, and we have Silicon Slopes, which just means everybody went home and worked, so they didn't even miss a beat. Real estate is an essential job, so we had maybe a 3-4 week, like, kind of, okay, what do we do now kind of moment. But once we recovered from that, we had a record year. We had a record year in Salt Lake County. We sold more houses in 2020 in Salt Lake County than any previous year. Include the next closest one was, it was close, within a few hundred, was 2003, I believe it was. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, because I kept asking myself, why are we having a record number and yet we have no inventory? How, like, that doesn't make sense, right? Because in order to sell houses, you have to have inventory. So we've had over 31,000 new, or close to 31,000, just under 31,000 in new construction. So, and not all the new construction is in the MLS. So those new house, I mean, the number of units is actually going to be a little higher. So anyway, and then the number we saw last 5 years, in Salt Lake County, we saw 56% growth in home prices. 5 years. That's amazing. Bought a house for 200, it's worth 300, if not more. And remember, that's across the board. So you could take zip codes and price points, and some of them, are a lot higher than that. But 5 years, 5 years. I mean, that's a lot of money, a lot of growth. So let me see if anybody has any quick chats. So there's no chats or no Q&A. So if you guys, boys and girls, if you want to talk, let us know. There's only a handful of us on here, but it's going to be recorded. And we know that most of the people are not live. It's mostly the recording that watch it. So, part of the reason for the, the price is able to go up is interest rates, right? So you have interest rates and value are like a teeter-totter, right? No, I'm sorry. Interest rates and value are the like a teeter-totter, and the fulcrum is monthly payment. So the borrower can pay $2,000 a month. If rates go down, then prices go up, and it's still $2,000 a month. If rates go up, prices go down, it's still $2,000 a month. So, so the historic low rates, and I've been, for the last 10 years, I've been saying, well, they can't go any lower, right? How about you? I mean, have you had that kind of sentiment, George?
Oh, I've called it wrong more times than I've called it right. You know, because every year starts out with a forecast. Well, interest rates are expected to go up a little bit this year. That's the same forecast every year. You know?
Right.
Yeah.
It's like our summer weather forecast. Today it's going to be hot.
Right.
You know, hot, no chance of rain till rainy season. So, but anyway, so, you know, so rates are, you know, below 3 in some aspects, and, you know, and you know, the quota rate is challenging. I mean, there's so many variables on that. I mean, you get that every day, right, George? What's the rate? Well, it depends.
Yeah.
You know, if you have, you know, 800 credit score, 0 debt, you know, 30% down, you're going to get a better rate.
Yeah.
I mean, it's that simple. So with speaking of rates, so let me stop sharing this, and let's start talking about, and then you tell me when you want your chart up, George.
Yeah. So there were basically two categories, and that I wanted to just share some information. And one of them is kind of the macro view with, the market in general and rates and loan limits and stuff like that. I'll maybe close with that. But the one thing I wanted to talk about on the micro side of things, and this is just me getting on my, podium here, every January, every February. And I just had a conversation. I'm reaching out. I'm physically calling all of my past clients, going through the list and at least, dropping a message or doing something, trying to get in touch with them. But there's been enough changes in the underwriting guidelines that are favorable if you are purchasing a home, okay, and favorable in the way of somebody who would either itemize their tax returns or somebody who has self-employment income. And just for example, yesterday, pre-qualified a couple of buyers, self-employed borrowers. The guy, it's a husband and wife on one of them, and the other one's just another guy. But anyway, they both of them had a situation where they had a huge increase in income from 2019 to 2020. And if I was looking at the 2019 tax return, if I had to average both years, let's just say that I've got one year that's 50,000 and the other year is 150,000. Well, that's a 2-year average of 100. Okay. But they're wanting to get into the higher end price range of homes. They're looking at, 600,000 to 800,000, and so it boils down to, okay, are we going to take a 1-year average on the income or a 2-year average on the income? And I'm seeing more and more flexibility on being able to qualify people with 1 year of tax return. So there's the converse of that too. What if somebody had a really good year in 2019 and then did not so well in 2020? Okay, declining income is always a red flag. Okay, that's always, oh no, somebody's going out of business. Well, there were a lot of people affected by COVID. Probably more people were affected negative than they were positive. But if somebody's self-employed and they had, they had the 150 in 2019 and only 100 in 2020, under the stricter underwriting guidelines that we had just even 2 or 3 years ago, that person had declining income and probably was not going to be able to do it. But if their credit's good, if they've got a decent down payment, if they've got some reserves, we're only looking at 1 year tax returns. So we don't know from the prior year whether they had an increase or a decrease. And so what I've been calling people and asking them is that if there's any chance that you might be buying or refinancing, or if you know somebody else who might be, if you have self-employed income, if you itemize your tax, if you itemize your deductions on your tax return, call me, because let's run it through. Let's take a look at your situation. And if you don't qualify right now, based on what you think you might have for your 2020 income, let's put you in a position where you only need to use 1 year of tax returns. Because what that could do for somebody that had a really good year is that, unfortunately, some people have to dial back their deductions, take less deductions so they can show more income, because they know that, well, I need to show enough to the bank to be able to qualify, because they had to use that 2-year average. It's a big difference. When you only have to look at 1 year of tax returns, then all we're not looking at a movie, we're looking at a snapshot, we're looking at a picture. And there's a lot of people that can, both of the ones that I did yesterday, I got a 1-year waiver with 2 self-employed borrowers, and they only have to put down 10%. Now they're good buyers. Okay. They've got, high 700 credit scores. They've got money in the bank beyond their 10% down, and their debt ratios were good. But their self-employed income from 2019 was in both cases was low. It was quite a bit lower. So they sent me their draft of what they were going to file for their 2020 tax return. And I said, okay, well, let me go in and put in a 2-year average on that. And basically, I was able to get back to both of them and just tell them, look, you don't have to claim that much income because I only need 1 year of tax returns. So that's really good news for people who are self-employed that want to go to their CPA and say, hey, yeah, I mean, if I've got some deductions here that if I can lower my taxes, let's lower my taxes because I'm still going to qualify. So
that's because of the 1 year versus the 2 year average. Because we had, like you said, 51 year and 100 next. So your average is 75. But because you don't need, you can just say 75 on your second. If 75 is all you need, well, then your second year, you don't need to claim 100. You can write it down.
Correct.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful.
So it used to be you could only get that 1 year tax waiver. You could only get it with Freddie Mac. Fannie Mae would never, they didn't even have it. It wasn't even available. Now Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, they're both conventional lenders, but they both will do the 1 year tax waiver. Used to be you had to have 25% down. Then we started getting it with 20. Well, now we're getting it with 10% down. We're getting them with 10% down. So that's huge. And the other part of this equation is that once your tax return is filed, okay, you cannot file an amended tax return that increases your income while you're getting a mortgage loan. It gets kicked out. So once the bullet's out of the gun, once the tax return has been filed, you cannot get it back. So you're going to, I just see it all the time. People, they'll file a tax return. They go, oh, I actually made much more than that. Let me go file an amended tax return. And the underwriter,
trying to qualify for more money.
They'll throw it right out because they know what people do. They amend the tax return, close on a loan, and then they amend it back to showing what they were back there. And it's just, and it's just, underwriters are not unintelligent. And the underwriting guidelines don't come into play just out of happenstance. They go and anytime that there's a loan that goes into default or foreclosure, there's a forensic audit done on that file and find, okay, where did we miss something? Why was this person good credit, good job, and everything else? And all of a sudden now we're taking this house back. What happened on it? And then that's where underwriting guidelines come from. They come from doing audits on the deals that went bad.
Right. The dead deal autopsies.
Right. So anyway, anybody that's got any inkling of doing anything, if your clients do, you have clients that are self-employed, it would be a huge benefit for them to know where they need to be on a 2020 tax return if they only have to file 1 year, because they might not have to show as much income. Maybe they take a few less deductions because they need to show a little bit more. But it's a combination of income, debt ratios, and credit score and reserves. So money in the bank after you close the transaction. Somebody that's got 6 months of payments left in the bank versus somebody who's putting down 10%. It takes every dime out of there. It's not required to have that. We don't have to have the reserves to be able to get the loan approved, but that can be the difference between taking a 2 year average and a 1 year average. So there's just some little elements in there that everybody on this, if you're a real estate agent, you're self-employed, or you're going to have some self-employment income. Right. But, so that's my stump speech on tax.
So agents should actually be making that phone call too.
Yeah.
Say, hey, look, there's been some underwriting guideline changes. If you're self-employed and you were trying to buy a home in the past and, running into some snags, hey, let's get together again because things have changed. So let me let's call George and say, hey, here it is,
Right. And then the thing that people say, okay, well, I've literally had some people just sit there and go, well, how much do I need to show? Well, it's like, well, I don't know. I need to know what price range you're looking in. I need to see where your credit scores are, your financials, and some other stuff. So rather than trying to get too far ahead of it without having the information, what I tell people to do is go and get your final draft. Just go file the tax returns the way that you were just going to go file them. Just have them, just together the way that you intended to do them. If it's with your CPA, a tax preparer, whatever, just a little FYI, if you use TurboTax is not going to let somebody else view a draft. I mean, what they're afraid of is that you'll use TurboTax to get it to point X, Y through all the alphabet to Y, and then you'll go and you'll download it and take it somewhere else and not have TurboTax do the filing and all this other stuff. So it's tough to look at a draft if you're using TurboTax or Quicken Tax Services. But all I want to do is I just want to see the draft that basically you and whoever's preparing your taxes that you're in consensus with, that this is about where it would be if I took every deduction or however you want to do it. And then we'll look at that number and just kind of, okay, that one might be good enough. That one could be good enough. And we just leave it alone. But if it's not, and I know that, well, I'm thinking about trading up, maybe getting into a $500,000-$600,000 home. Okay, well, this is how much I get from this house. Maybe you don't even have to sell that house. Maybe you can trade up and convert this one to a rental, or you can buy the next one and you don't have to, you can move out and then go back and get this house, staged and whatever else you need to do to put it on the market. There's just a lot of things that if your financing is nailed down and you know exactly where you're at and what you need to do for what you potentially want to do, you're putting yourself in a much better position in a market that's as competitive as we are now. So it's good to get everything lined up and ready, even if you think it might be October before you do it, because you file your tax return in March, you're stuck with that number until next year.
Right. Right. So I guess that's great information right there, and especially, for the real estate community itself. I mean, we're self-employed. Now, you guys are W-2s, but are you considered self-employed still?
I'm self-employed because I run my own branch. Yes.
But if you have a loan officer that's in your shop, are they considered self-employed?
Straight commission. Yeah. So
but they're on a W-2.
They're getting W-2. It'd be kind of like a salesman working at a car dealership. Okay. They're straight commission, but they're W-2.
Yeah, so, that almost doesn't even make sense to me.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of, but no, I have self-employment income. So mine is a mixture. I take a base that's W-2, and then the rest of it's self-employment income.
Sure. No.
So I am a self-employed borrower. I know whereof I speak. So
right.
Yeah. So
I'm a self-employed borrower too. I know I go to George.
Yeah.
So,
but I don't know if there's any questions or anything on that, but I'd be happy to talk with anybody. And again, get the tax return to where you've got the final draft, where the bullet's in the chamber and the gun's loaded, right, but you just haven't fired it yet. Let's take a look and see where it looks right now. And if it's good to go, then great, go ahead and file. If we need to tinker with it, it has to be done before you file. And these aren't big adjustments. Sometimes there's things where you can take a different type of accounting method on something that would, that would save you money on your taxes, but not lower your income. There's just a couple of little things on there, and just some things that people just don't, they just don't think about it. And it's, it's just a matter of having looked at a bunch of self-employed tax returns, and my own included. So, but the other thing, Rob, that we can go and just talk a little bit about, like the general mortgage market and how that might affect, our us in the state here. Loan limits for conventional went from 510, 400 to 548,250. So we had about a 7.5% increase year over year, which I think is, that's just evidence, to support what's going on in the housing market here.
And the prices, yeah. So let me pull that back up.
Yeah.
I'll pull up the chart. Let me find it.
And then the one I think that Rob's pulling up here is more specifically for FHA, the county by county. And the thing that's really interesting is,
FHA.
Davis, Morgan, Weber, Box Elder, all Cache County. But we've got several of these counties north of Salt Lake at 646,000.
Yeah, Davis 646 in Salt Lake.
And Salt Lake is less. Yeah.
150.
Yeah, I don't get how Utah County, Provo, is at 439.3 and Davis County is at 646.300. But not only Davis County, but also Morgan and Weber County. So I mean, you can go and get a FHA loan. You can go, somebody with a 620 credit score can put down 3.5% on a $670,000 home up in Syracuse. You're buying a mansion up there,
Right.
So
Ogden.
Yeah, right. Yeah, up in Ogden and stuff. So the FHA limits in some of the counties are substantially higher than they are for conventional.
Right.
So anyway, and then I think Wasatch and Summit County, 817,000. That probably gets you in Summit County what 400,000 would get you in Davis County, but I don't know. So I don't do a whole lot up in the Park City market area up there, but I know that
Right.
does, and you've got some other agents that are active up there. But so that's, to me, that's just a reflection and an acknowledgement that purchase prices are the market is appreciating, and whatever the metrics are that they look to come up with these numbers. I don't know how you get Davis County being that much better than Utah County, but it skews back and forth, and it just is what it is. But those are the numbers that we have for 2020.
Yeah, that's baffling.
Yeah,
because Davis, with their median price is 479. Well, there you go. That's why Salt Lake's median price is 394.
Yeah,
That's why.
Yeah. But there's a nationwide floor that the lowest that any county is, it's something like 300 something, but we don't have anything lower than the 456. So, down in San Pete County, where yours truly and a few other people reside, right. 456 gets you a pretty nice size home down in that area still. So I'm sorry, I'm 356.
Right.
So,
yeah, you can do pretty well in San Pete for 356.
Yeah. But and then those are the loan limits. And so some people think, okay, well, I can't buy anything. No, I mean, if you have
to have 3.5% down, right?
Right. If the loan limit is 400, you can buy a $500,000 home with an FHA loan. You just got to come up with the difference for the down.
Right.
And there's a lot of cases. I mean, I've got a FHA loan that's going to be going under contract here shortly, where the buyer has got a little bit more than 5% down, but because of some credit concerns, they're not eligible for anything except an FHA loan. Right. So this is for people in those situations.
So George, on these loan limits, so like on a duplex 580, you still only need 3.5% down on a duplex, right?
Correct. Now, the underwriting on a duplex is almost the exact same as it is on a single family residence. Once you get into 3 and 4 unit properties, FHA has a completely different calculation that brings in to consideration the comparable rents and what they call the property basically has to cash flow itself based on that. So right. you can have the best buyer in the world. You can have somebody that's got the down payment and everything else is all lined up. But if they're buying a triplex or a fourplex, and if the appraiser, it's not what's on the lease agreements, and it's not even if the property's vacant, the appraiser is going to go out there and he's going to come up with a comparable rent schedule. And he's going to say, okay, look, comparable rent on these property would be $1,000 per unit. Okay. FHA is going to take 80% of that, and they're going to say, okay, if that means that I can count $3,200 of this as income, that payment on that triplex or fourplex has to be $3,200 or less. FHA wants to know that if they got to take that thing back, they want to know that it's going to cash flow while it's sitting there if they have to collect the rent. Right. On a duplex, we don't do that on a duplex. On a duplex, all you do is, and I've got one of my kids, that's entertaining that thought of having their first home be a duplex. And I said, that's great, because if the rent on the other unit is $1,200 a month, I can count 80% of that, where it is $960 or whatever. I can actually count that as additional income to help them qualify for it. So you got somebody who's only maybe making $50,000 a year, you add another $1,000 a month to their income off of the projected rent off of that other unit. Well, you're moving somebody from from low 300s to low 400s. I mean, you're making a big difference in the amount that you can move their purchasing power.
Right.
So.
Yep. And that would work. Yeah, they live there 5 years, rents go up, and then it's, the cash flow makes more sense. They could refinance into conventional, get rid of some of the mortgage insurance, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, no, and then they got a great investment property going forward if they want to move out and get into something else.
Right.
So,
Yep. So let's talk about, it's always rates. People always ask rates. So what is your crystal, so what are, kind of a paper rates today, if you will?
so I actually locked 2 loans this morning. One of them was a VA purchase. That was, 2 3/4 on a VA loan. That's about as good as we've been. We've had a couple of little dips where we've actually gotten better than that. Believe it or not, the rates Thursday last week through Monday of this week, we took it on the chin. The rates went up. It was one of the bigger moves that we've had probably in the last 6 months on the rates. But then Wednesday, Thursday, we've clawed back and clawed back a little bit. We probably got back 40% of what was lost. But and then I had a conventional loan. It was a 20-year term, not a 30-year, but a 20-year term at 2.5 that was locked with. And these are both good, middle 700 credit score buyers. Good
Right.
Clean buyers. But yeah, for somebody that's got all the right, credit score and debt ratios and 5% down or whatnot, we're still below 3% for the
Right.
for the A+ buyers. But but the forecast where we're at right now, I pulled up a couple things. I read the Kiplinger letter, which is a weekly publication that's been being published since the 1920s. And it's kind of a business forecasting thing. And then I have a couple other sources, Barry Habib,
Right.
that I listen to and follow them. The consensus is that there's going to be more government spending again this year, and it's probably going to be at higher levels than what it was last year. And that tends to have some upward pressure on inflation. Upward pressure on inflation tends to have an upward pressure on rates. But I'm not seeing anybody that thinks that rates would be worse than, like, again, on your A+ buyers, we're thinking maybe the rates go up 0.5%, maybe 5/8. Nobody's really thinking anything worse than 3.5. So I don't see any impact on the real estate market if the rates were to rise up 0.5% or even 0.75%. I just don't think that there's an appetite for that happening out there. I think they know that, we ever got back to like rates at 7, 8, and 9%, which was a very common thing all through the 90s and early 2000s.
Oh yeah.
That would
prior to 2004.
Different,
Yeah. Prior to 2004, I think the average rate was 7.5.
Yeah.
The historical average,
Yeah, we're spoiled. We're spoiled. Anybody that's bought a home in the last 15 years, has seen rates that your grandparents probably never saw. So
right.
But
yeah, my first house, you hear all the stories. Everybody, of course, the fish always gets bigger.
right.
But my first house was 9%. We actually refied at 7. So
yeah, mine was at 10.5, and I thought I got a great deal when I could refinance it to 9.
Right. Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So from what I'm hearing is, that the rates probably aren't going to go above, like you said, 3.25, maybe 3.5, depending. And then the what do you call it? The inflation is usually delayed. In other words, it doesn't happen the day something else happens.
Yeah.
So if there's a large spending bill, inflation is, 6 months to a year later.
Yeah. And the one thing is, normally you can always say, don't judge people by what they say, judge them by what they do.
Right.
The only situation where that does not apply is the Federal Reserve. Everybody, the market's very, very, very careful to watch what they say. And Jerome Powell is speaking again here. He might be speaking right now. I don't know. I can't remember what time he started, but he's got a Fed. There's a Fed. Some of the minutes are being released today, and the market, like a hawk, pays attention. But the last time they came out, they said there will be no rate increases. They're not going to consider anything until 2022. Now, does that have an effect on mortgage rates? The answer is no. These are short-term overnight loans.
Right.
Versus that. But what people pay attention to the Fed to find out is, what are they forecasting for economic activity? What are they forecasting for inflation, trade, all of these other metrics that come into play that have again, it's the Fed is the ultimate macro forecaster on where they see things happening. And if their sentiments are is that we might be heading into an inflationary environment, well, people aren't going to wait for it to happen. They're going to start selling bonds, buying stocks, and or vice versa, depending on what those sentiments are.
Got it. So if we have a housing shortage, which, it's going to take several years for us to build out of that. My estimated numbers are 2.5 years to build, provided no new buyers come of age and nobody moves into the state. So, and our growth is about 40% in migration. So, that's a big number.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and people move here. And as other states, mismanage, the more people move here.
Yeah.
Now they're talking that, Silicon Valley, because the shutdowns are, having Silicon Valley workers saying, well, geez, why do I need to live here?
Right.
I'm paying $1.5 million for a house, and it's $1,000 a foot. So you get a 1,500 square foot slab on grade Hoffman Heights home for $1.5 million.
Yeah.
Or, you live 3-hour commute to get to work, but if they're now working from home, why can't I go to Utah, spend $800,000 and just have a mansion?
And I saw a few, I had a few transactions I was involved with personally last year, people leaving the West Coast and migrating here. And I think that's a pattern that's going to continue.
Oh yeah. I don't see that going down soon between taxes and, the taxes mostly and the affordability. Why live there when you don't have to?
Well, and I think if anything, one of the really good things that came out of last year is that there's a lot of jobs where you don't have to be in a physical office space to do your job.
Yep.
I mean, I don't think Silicon Slopes, you mentioned that in the open. I mean, Silicon Slopes, how are they affected? There's nobody working at Adobe that can't go and do what they're doing from home.
Right.
So,
yeah, the only thing that might happen is that, all that Class A office space,
yeah,
not as needed. But I don't think for Adobe down there in Lehigh, that'll have a major impact because their projections was to triple in size. That building was actually built as a 1/3 size of the final project. So there was like 2 more phases to that so they're actually not going to be hurt. That just means phase 2 might be delayed because we're not going to have to build that for quite some time. So,
right.
If they double in size, they won't have to double in real estate.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, there's just a lot of, who knows what we're going to see this year? It's, I think anybody that thought they could have saw what was coming in last year at this time would have had no idea. Last year at this time, we're all just sitting here thinking, oh, it's going to be another good year and everything else. And then we find out, that everybody's wearing a face diaper and staying at home,
Right. So. Yeah. So, people working at home and then, what else? I lost my train of thought.
Yeah.
So squirrel.
Yeah.
Oh no. Yeah. But then, commercial real estate,
right.
Office space and retail. Retail space, cause part of what came out of the, a lot of the things that are happening or that happened in 2020 were already happening. It's just that they were probably on a 5-year trajectory that got accelerated into 1 year.
Yeah.
A lot of the retail space was collapsing anyway. It just got collapsed faster. So, the mega companies got bigger, and the small local businesses. If you're a small local retail, you're almost, the only thing you can pretty much do locally is like food, specialty clothes, clothes. I don't want to buy clothes online. What a pain that is, that to return. I want to try them on before I even flunk down my card. So there are some things that will come out of this. But one thing that's certainly greatly improved is delivery services. Man, I'm really loving that. What's that company?
I want that back. That VA loan actually was at 2 3/8, 2.375, not 2.7.
Oh, wow.
But it was a $500,000 VA loan. So you get a little bit, the pricing's a little, yeah, that's another thing that affects the interest rate is the size of the loan. So it's the amount of the percentage of servicing income that a servicer gets from the loan does not change with the loan amount. So in other words, if they're getting 1/4 of a point, annually, servicing a $100,000 loan, I mean, that's $250. That's
right.
for collecting the payment and doing the escrow analysis and all the other stuff. Well, on a $500,000 loan, it's still 1/4 of a point.
Right.
So obviously, a bank is willing to pay more money to buy the servicing rights to a $500,000 loan because it's 5 times as much revenue and the same amount of work.
Right.
So
a lot of times less work because there's less defaulting.
Probably so. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway. But I think we got a good market going again this for it. I mean, last year, Rob, me and Jason did this, and we did it in March, and we did it kind of at the height of the uncertainty and everything else. And boy, I look back on that. I mean, and Jason nailed it. He says, we are not going to have any problems in the Utah market. And, and last year, March and April, I had 3 people that had gone under contract, and the younger millennials, and the parents told them, you pull out of that. And they pulled out of the contract because they told them that house would be selling for 20% less by summertime. And they refused because they were going to help their kids with some gift money. They
right.
said, there's no way you're going to be buying a house in March or April. And, it didn't work out the way they thought it would.
Nope. No, it's
one of the buyers had a father that was a financial advisor. That was,
imagine taking advice from that moron.
Yeah, right. Yeah. He talked his kids out of a condo in Sandy that was under contract for something like $229.
Right. Now it's probably worth $280.
Yeah, right. So anyway, so it's I don't know. I just don't like ever betting against the market. I don't like betting against the U.S. economy. I never think I don't ever think that's a wise investment.
No. No. Well, and the numbers are there. I mean, housing prices, there's 2 major factors for housing prices. One is jobs, which we didn't lose as many jobs as other states, and we're going to have major job growth,
right,
which puts pressure on wages to go up, because if we're growing jobs and, it's now employers are competing for other employees. So that puts upward pressure on wages. That's one. And then the other one is, the whole supply and demand. I mean, we still have, regardless of the numbers I showed you, they're not as bad as what they appear to be. They're still low. We're still 25% less than last year when you compare those sets of numbers to now. So anyway, last year, it was, especially real estate got in 80s. It's who would have thought that, we'd be where we are now 10 years ago.
Yeah.
10 years ago was the beginning, not the beginning. That was like pretty much clear to the bottom of the Great Recession.
I think you're exactly right. I think the early 2011 was about the bottom.
The very bottom, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was January 2011 is what they're stating. But the only way to ever know the bottom of the housing market is in the rearview mirror.
Right.
You can never tell that looking forward. No. So anyway, anybody have any questions? If not, I mean, do you have anything else you want to add, George?
No, I covered what I wanted to, but I appreciate the numbers that you put up there too. I mean, that's just to me, that explains, it's the turnover. It's the,
right.
It's the turn
they're just gone instantly.
Turning over. That's what matters. It's not what you're seeing as active listings. It's the fact that they're going under contract in 4 days.
Right. So, which means you have to get out there every time something hits the market, which is brutal.
Yeah.
It's just brutal. So we got something in the chat.
Anna Marie.
Oh, great information. Oh, you are so welcome, Miss
Yeah,
Anna Marie.
appreciate it.
So, anybody have any thoughts, questions, concerns, hallucinations? How about you, Deb? Do you have anything you want to add? I have to
That
wake
might be
her up.
having a hallucination.
I have to wake her up, and she's got to get her microphone on.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, if not, well, that's all I have then, boys and girls. Let me stop the share. So,
Thanks, Rob.
yep, thank you.
Yeah, no, appreciate it. Always good to get on here and get the skinny on the real estate market, especially the local market here, which is what matters.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, preach that all the time. I mean, real estate's local in nature. I mean, given national real estate stats is like national weather. Well, what good is that?
Right.
It's 85 in Miami and 12 in Anchorage. You know where's it at in my town? You know. So
Yeah.
anyway, all right. Well, that's all I got, boys and girls. Thanks for joining us and have an amazing day. And if there's ever anything we can do, and George, how does somebody get a hold of you?
Cell phone number is the best one, 801-550-1382. And then my website is thecreditjungle.com. So
Okay.
thanks so much,
Awesome.
Rob.
Yep. See you, boys and girls. Bye.